nor would the child know him, that I was to trust her and boldly go up to London and bring the boy into his father's presence. The butler, Collier, who of course also knew the child, had, owing to Madame's secret intervention, been sent on a fruitless errand into the country, and so got out of the way. I now see what Madame really meant. She would kill Mr. Durham, and so ensure his silence forever. But oh, Mr. Head, bad as I am, I cannot commit murder. Mr. Head, you must save Mr. Durham's life." "I will do what I can," I answered. "There is no doubt from your confession that Durham is being subjected to some slow poison. What, we have to discover. I must leave you now, Lady Faulkner." I went into the next room, where Dufrayer and Dr. Curzon were waiting for me. It was darkened. At the far end, in a bed against the wall, lay Durham. Bidding the nurse bring the lamp, I went across and bent over him. I started back at his strange appearance. I scarcely recognized him. He was lying quite still, breathing so lightly that at first I thought he must be already dead. The skin of the face and neck had a very strange appearance. It was inflamed and much reddened. I called the poor fellow by name, very gently. He made no sign of recognition. "What is all this curious inflammation due to?" I asked of Dr. Curzon, who was standing by my side. "That is the mystery," he replied. "It is unlike anything I have seen before." I took up my lens and examined it closely. It was certainly curious. Whatever the cause, the inflammation seemed to have started from many different centres of disturbance. I was at once struck by the curious shape of the markings. They were star-shaped, and radiated as if from different centres. As I still examined them, I could not help thinking that I had seen similar markings somewhere else not long ago, but when and connected with what I could not recall. This was, however, a detail of no importance. The terrible truth which confronted me absorbed every other consideration. Durham was dying before my eyes, and from Lady Faulkner's confession, Madame Koluchy was doubtless killing him by means unknown. It was indeed a weird situation. I beckoned to the doctor and went out with him onto the landing. "I have no time to tell you all," I said. "You noticed Lady Faulkner's agitation. She has made a strange and terrible confession. The child who has just been brought back to the house is Durham's own son. He was stolen by Lady Faulkner for reasons of her own. The woman who helped her kidnap the child was the quack doctor, Madame Koluchy." "Madame Koluchy?" said Dr. Curzon. "The same," I answered. "The cleverest and the most wicked woman in London, a past master in every shade of crime. Beyond doubt, Madame is at the bottom of Durham's illness. She is poisoning him. We have got to discover how. I thought it necessary to tell you as much, Dr. Curzon. Now, will you come back with me again to the sick room?" The doctor followed me without a word. Once more I bent over Durham, and as I did so, the memory of where I had seen similar markings returned to me. I had seen them on photographic plates which had been exposed to the induction action of a brush discharge of high electromotive force from the positive terminal of a plant rheostatic machine. An eminent electrician had drawn my attention to these markings at the time, had shown me the plates, and remarked upon the strange effects. Could there be any relationship of cause and effect here? "Has any kind of electric treatment been tried?" I asked, turning to Dr. Curzon. "None," he answered. "Why do you ask?" "Because," I said, "I have seen similar effects produced on the skin by prolonged exposure to powerful X-rays, and the appearance of Durham's face suggests that the skin might have been subjected to a powerful discharge from a focus tube." "There has been no electricity employed, nor has any stranger been near the patient." He was about to proceed when I suddenly raised my hand. "Hush!" I cried. "Stay quiet a moment." There was immediately a dead silence in the room. The dying man breathed more and more feebly. His face beneath the dreadful star-like markings looked as if he were already dead. Was I a victim to my own fancies, or did I hear, muffled, distant, and faint, the sound I somehow expected to hear, the sound of a low hum a long way off? An ungovernable excitement seized me. "Do you hear? Do you hear?" I asked, grasping Curzon's arm. "I hear nothing. What do you expect me to hear?" he said, fear dawning in his eyes. "Who is in the next room through there?" I asked, bending over the sick man and touching the wall behind his head. "That room belongs to the next house, sir," said the nurse. "Then if that is so, we may have got the solution," I said. "Curzon, Dufrayer, come with me at once." We hurried out of the room. "We must get into the next house without a moment's delay," I said. "Into the next house? You must be mad," said the doctor. "I am not. I have already told you that there is foul play in this extraordinary case, and a fearful explanation of Durham's illness has suddenly occurred to me." I have given a great deal of time lately to the study of the effect of powerful cathode and X-rays. The appearance of the markings on Durham's face are suspicious. Will you send a messenger at once to my house for my fluorescent screen?" "I will fetch it," said Dufrayer. He hurried off. "The next thing to be done is to move the bed on which the sick man lies to the opposite side of the room," I said. Curzon watched me as I spoke, with a queer expression on his face. "It shall be done," he said briefly. We returned to the sick room. In less than an hour my fluorescent screen was in my hand. I held it up to the wall, just where Durham's bed had been. It immediately became fluorescent, but we could make nothing out. This fact, however, converted my suspicions into certainties. "I thought so," I said. "Who owns the next house?" I rushed downstairs to question the servants. They could only tell me that it had been unoccupied for some time, but that the board "To Let" had a month ago been removed. They did not believe that the new occupants had yet taken possession. Dufrayer and I went into the street and looked up at the windows. The house was to all appearance the counterpart of the one in which Durham lived. Dufrayer, who was now as much excited as I was, rushed off to the nearest fire engine station and quickly returned with an escape ladder. This was put up to one of the upper windows, and we managed to get in. The next instant we were inside the house, and the low hum of a make and break fell on our ears. We entered a room answering to the one where Durham's bedroom was situated, and there immediately discovered the key to the diabolical mystery. Close against the wall, within a few feet of where the sick man's bed had been, was an enormous focus tube, the platinum electrode turned so as to direct the rays through the wall. The machine was clamped in a holder and stood on a square deal table, upon which also stood the most enormous induction coil I had ever seen. This was supplied from the main through wires coming from the electric lights supplied to the house. This induction coil gave a spark of at least 24 inches. Insulated wires from it ran across the room to a hole in the farther wall into the next room, where the make and break was whirring. This had evidently been done in order that the noise of the hum should be as far away as possible. Constant powerful discharges of cathode and X-rays, such as must have been playing upon Durham for days and nights continuously, are now proved to be so injurious to life that he would in all probability have been dead before the morning," I cried. "As it is, we may save him." I then turned and grasped Dufrayer by the arm. "I believe that at last we have evidence to convict Mme. Koluchy," I exclaimed. "What with Lady Faulkner's confession and—" "Let us go back at once and speak to Lady Faulkner," said Dufrayer. We returned at once to the next house, but the woman whom we sought had already vanished. How she had gone and when, no one knew. The next day we learned that Mme. Koluchy had also left London, and that it was not certain when she would return. Doubtless Lady Faulkner, having confessed in a moment of terrible agitation, had then flown to Mme. Koluchy for protection. From that hour to now we have heard nothing more of the unfortunate young woman. Her husband is moving heaven and earth to find her, but in vain. Removed from the fatal influence of the rays, Durham has recovered, and the joy of having his little son restored to him has doubtless been his best medicine. End of chapter 6.